moment someone insults you, they gain access to your emotions. And most people never realize this. They think being offended proves strength, that reacting proves confidence, but Stoicism teaches the opposite. The more emotionally reactive you are, the easier you become to control. Because calm people are difficult to manipulate, and the moment you stop taking everything personally, people lose power over your mind. What if every insult made you stronger instead of weaker? Picture this exact scenario. You are standing in a crowded room. Someone looks you dead in the eye and throws a sharp, unprovoked insult at you. Maybe they attack your intelligence or belittle your achievements. Instantly, your heart rate spikes. Your face flushes hot. The ego inside you screams for vengeance. It demands a sharp comeback to crush them and make them look small. You want to fight back, but do not do it. The moment you react emotionally, you hand them the invisible leash to your mind. Instead, you must deploy the Stoic immunity system. Step 1 is the tactical pause. You do not strike back. You do not flinch. You look them directly in the eyes. You keep your facial expression completely neutral. You slowly count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. What happens in these 3 seconds of absolute silence? You shift the entire weight of the interaction back onto their shoulders. Silence is terrifying to a deeply insecure person. You are asking, without making a single sound, is that all you have got? The psychological grenade they threw at you simply hits the ground and rolls away. But what if they do not stop? The awkward vacuum of your silence makes them uncomfortable, so they push harder. They double down on the disrespect. They want you to build a wall of defensive anger so they can punch it. This is when you move to step 2, verbal judo. You deny them this satisfaction by removing the target entirely. You look at them with mild curiosity, smile slightly, and say calmly, "Interesting, tell me more." Or you state with total indifference, "You might be right." Watch the sudden confusion wash over their eyes. Why does this work? Because you have instantly shifted the power dynamic. You took their aggressive energy, absorbed it, and let them fall flat on their face. You agreed with their right to hold a terribly misinformed opinion. But you offered zero resistance. They expected a loud battle, but you refused to put on the gloves. They are left throwing punches at thin air. Yet, sometimes the attacker is relentless. They ignore your calm detachment and deliberately cross the line into toxic hostility. They are determined to drag you down into their mud. Society tells you that you must shout louder to defend your honor. Stoicism completely destroys this myth. You move to step 3, the absolute boundary. True strength is knowing exactly when a battle is absolutely beneath your dignity. You look at them with cold clarity and state firmly, "This conversation is no longer productive." Or you declare, "I do not compete in that category." And then, you do the most powerful thing a human being can do. You turn your back and physically walk away. You do not look back. You suffocate their fire by completely removing your oxygen. But as you walk away, the battle continues inside your mind. Your heart might still be beating fast. You might want to replay the scene. Do not fall into this trap. You must cut the final invisible cord through step 4, radical empathy. Why should you empathize with someone who just disrespected you? Because happy and fulfilled people do not go around trying to destroy the peace of others. An insult is simply a symptom of a psychological wound that the other person is carrying. You do not see a villain. You see a confused, helpless individual throwing a desperate tantrum. It is absolutely impossible to be offended by someone you feel sorry for. You separate the objective fact from the subjective feeling. The feeling was a sudden spike of humiliation. The fact is simply that an insecure person offered an unsolicited and worthless opinion. By separating the fact from the feeling, you drain the venom completely. You step out of the room, anchored in logic, radiating an untouchable authority. Your mind is an impenetrable fortress, and you are entirely free. As you walk down that hallway, the physical confrontation is completely over. The door is closed behind you, but the psychological battle has just begun. Your heart rate is returning to normal, yet a small, dark voice inside your head might start to whisper. It tells you that you should have humiliated them. It demands that you go back and deliver a crushing final word. It tells you that walking away made you look weak. Do not listen to that voice. Society constantly feeds you a toxic lie. It conditions you to believe that power means shouting the loudest and destroying your enemy. Stoicism completely destroys this myth. True power is not aggressive dominance. True power is absolute, unshakable indifference. Think about what is happening on the other side of that door right now. What is the psychological state of the person who insulted you? They threw a grenade at you, expecting a massive emotional explosion. Instead, you gave them 3 seconds of silence, a calm question, and then you simply vanished. You starved their fire of oxygen. They are left standing in an awkward, suffocating vacuum. Their attempt to manipulate your reality has completely failed. They feel exposed and foolish. You have won the interaction without raising your voice. But how do you maintain this victory? How do you stop the insult from echoing in your mind, hours or days later? You must deploy the highest level of the Stoic immunity system. Welcome to the revenge of excellence. The ancient Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius possessed the absolute power to crush any human being on earth. Yet, he wrote a profound truth in his personal journal. He said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Think about the devastating power hidden inside that single sentence. What does your attacker truly want? They want to infect you with their misery. They want to see you lower your standards and roll around in the mud with them. When you trade an insult for an insult, you grant them their wish. You become their twin. But what happens when you refuse to change your character? What happens when you respond to their malice by simply continuing to be excellent? You destroy them psychologically. The ultimate counterattack does not require a single aggressive word. It requires your unbothered progress. Imagine the person who insulted your intelligence watching you succeed brilliantly in your career. Imagine the person who mocked your choices watching you carry yourself with supreme confidence. Your success is a blinding light that exposes their darkness. You do not have to argue that they are wrong. Your entire life proves that they are wrong. When they realize that their words could not penetrate your armor, they are left to drown in their own bitter poison. But to execute this flawless victory, you must remember the false mirror framework. When an insecure person insults you, they are not describing you. They are holding up a false mirror. They are projecting their own internal chaos and their own deep failures onto you. A truly happy person never feels the urge to tear someone else down. The desire to insult another human being is always a symptom of a psychological disease. Why would you ever let their disease infect your peace? You must separate facts from feelings. The feeling might be a sudden spike of annoyance, The fact is simply that an insecure person offered an unsolicited and worthless opinion. By separating the fact from the feeling, you drain the venom completely. You drop the heavy stone of resentment. Carrying resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only drains the valuable energy you need to build your own life. Redirect every ounce of your energy away from their petty drama. Pour it directly into your own personal growth. You show the world that true authority is the supreme ability to remain completely indifferent to desperate attempts to crush you. Your mind is an impenetrable fortress. The heavy iron gates lock only from the inside. No attacker can ever force their way into your mind unless you deliberately unlock the gates and invite them in. Keep those gates shut tight. You are the absolute master of your reality. You are completely untouchable. The psychological battle in the hallway is won, but your training is far from over. You have successfully defended your mental fortress against a direct attack. You have deployed the tactical pause, executed the verbal judo, and established an absolute boundary. But what happens the next morning? What happens when you have to walk back into that same office or sit at the same dinner table and face the exact same environment? The world does not suddenly become a quiet and polite place simply because you have leveled up your mindset. You will still encounter passive aggression. You will still face toxic coworkers and deeply insecure family members. To maintain your untouchable status, you must install the next layer of the Stoic immunity system. You must master the separation of objective facts from subjective feelings. Imagine you are in a meeting, and a colleague passionately argues that your project is failing. They do not use data. They use dramatic emotion. They claim they have a bad feeling about your energy, or they vaguely attack your competence. The average person would immediately panic. The average person would match their loud energy, get defensive, and try to validate their own feelings. Do not do that. When a person uses emotion as a weapon, they are trying to drag you into a storm of subjective chaos. You must firmly anchor yourself to reality. You look them in the eye and say calmly, "Let us stay on facts, not feelings. What exactly did I do to make you feel this way?" Watch how quickly their dramatic narrative collapses. Emotions are merely indicators. They are not evidence. By forcing them to provide objective proof, you strip away their manipulative power. You shift the conversation from their chaotic feelings to absolute reality. If they cannot provide data, they are left looking entirely irrational. You remain grounded, cool, and in complete control. But to execute this flawlessly, you must first eliminate your own greatest vulnerability. You must completely let go of the desperate need for external validation. Why do insults hurt in the first place? Why do we care so much when someone disrespects us? It is because society has conditioned us from childhood to seek applause. We are taught that our value depends on the approval of parents, teachers, and peers. When you rely on the opinions of other people to feel valuable, you are handing them the keys to your emotional state. You are giving them permission to dictate your worth. Stoicism teaches a devastatingly powerful countermeasure. Your worth is intrinsic. It is not up for debate. Think of it this way. A flawless diamond does not lose a single ounce of its extreme value simply because an ignorant person mistakes it for a piece of cheap glass. Its worth exists entirely independent of their uneducated perception. The exact same principle applies to you. The disrespect of another human being does not diminish your value. It only exposes their own limitations. When you fully detach your identity from their opinions, you become truly free. You no longer walk into a room hoping people will like you. You walk into a room knowing that you are already sufficient. This realization leads you to the ultimate Stoic triumph. You must learn to forgive and release. Society completely misunderstands forgiveness. People think forgiveness means letting the attacker off the hook or pretending their behavior was acceptable. That is a lie. Forgiveness is the selfish and deliberate act of freeing yourself from the heavy burden of resentment. Imagine carrying a heavy stone weighing 50 pounds in your hands. At first, you can manage it, but after a few hours, your arms grow exhausted and the weight becomes absolute torture. Resentment works exactly the same way. The longer you carry their toxic words in your mind, the more energy you drain from your own life. You are drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. You must drop the heavy stone. You do not carry their misery into your future. You observe their chaotic behavior without internalizing it. You travel lighter, faster, and completely unbothered. You prioritize your own peace over the futile desire for revenge. By dropping the stone, you make your fortress completely impenetrable. You prove that your energy is far too valuable to be wasted on noise. You have conquered the workplace. You have dropped the heavy stone of resentment. You walk out of the office and head home, feeling like an untouchable fortress. But the ultimate test of the Stoic immunity system does not happen in the boardroom or in a crowded public space. It happens inside your own house. What happens when the disrespect, the subtle insults, and the harsh judgments come from a family member, a close friend, or a romantic partner? When a stranger or a toxic coworker insults you, it is relatively easy to walk away. You have learned to separate objective facts from subjective feelings. But when someone you deeply love criticizes your career, mocks your life choices, or belittles your dreams, the pain is entirely different. The invisible dagger cuts much deeper. Why does this happen? It happens because you have willingly lowered your drawbridge for them. You have attached your fragile ego to their approval. You desperately crave their validation. You expect them to understand you perfectly, and when they do not, your immediate biological reflex is to fight back. You want to explain, to justify, to desperately prove that your perspective is right. Stop doing that immediately. The moment you over-explain yourself to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, you hand over your ultimate power. You are silently telling them that your reality is not valid until they agree with it. Stoicism offers a devastatingly calm countermeasure for this exact domestic situation. It is the tactic of neutral acknowledgement. The next time a close associate or a family member offers an unsolicited, passive-aggressive opinion about your life, do not get defensive. Do not raise your voice. Look at them with complete calm and say, "Thanks for your opinion." Stop right there. Add absolutely zero justification. Do not offer a single word of explanation. What happens psychologically in that precise moment? You acknowledge their perspective, but you completely refuse to validate it or absorb it into your own reality. They expected a heavy emotional argument. They wanted you to fight for your position because your desperate fight proves that they have intense influence over you. By simply thanking them for their opinion and moving on, you starve them of that influence. You build an invisible but impenetrable glass wall between their judgment and your peace of mind. You watch their disrespectful words fall to the floor. You do not pick those words up. You leave them exactly where they landed. You must treat their disrespect exactly as you treat a sudden change in the weather. If it rains, you do not yell at the clouds. You simply open an umbrella and continue walking toward your destination. Their negative opinions are nothing more than psychological rain. You deploy your Stoic umbrella. But what if they keep pushing? What if they insist that you are making a terrible mistake and demand an emotional reaction? This is where you deploy another devastating statement of Stoic detachment. You look them in the eyes and calmly say, "Believe what you want. My life will not change." Or if they mock your understanding of a situation, you can smile slightly and say, "It is okay. Not everyone gets it." Think about the profound psychological dominance of those phrases. You are not attacking them. You are not starting a war. You are simply stating a universal fact. You are declaring that your self-worth exists entirely independent of their perception. Society conditions you from a very young age to seek external validation, especially from your family. But you must understand that even people who love you will sometimes project their own deep insecurities onto your life. Their harsh words are often just echoes of their own unfulfilled dreams and their own private failures. Why should you ever allow their internal limitations to become the ceiling of your potential? You must decide that you will never again put yourself on trial for the comfort of another human being. You respect their right to hold an opinion, but you absolutely deny them the power to govern your emotional state. You remain anchored in your own logic. You navigate the complex web of human relationships without ever compromising your untouchable core. By doing this, you master the hardest battlefield of all. Your mind remains a fortress, even when the attack comes from inside the gates. You have secured your fortress against the subtle disrespect of those closest to you. You have learned to neutralize their passive aggression with calm acknowledgement. But your Stoic immunity system is about to face another supreme test. What happens when the attack is not subtle at all? What happens when you are confronted with pure, explosive anger? Imagine a scenario where a colleague, a partner, or even a stranger suddenly raises their voice, shouting and losing all emotional control. Their face is flushed. Their words are aggressive and meant to intimidate. Society conditions you to believe that you must match their volume. It tells you that if you do not shout back, you are displaying weakness. It demands that you defend your territory with equal ferocity. This is a massive psychological trap. The person who is shouting is desperately trying to pull you into their storm. They are drowning in their own emotional chaos, and they want you to drown with them. Do not jump into the water. Instead, you must deploy a response that is psychologically devastating. You look them directly in the eyes. You keep your voice extremely quiet, and you say, "Calm down. I will wait." Think about the supreme power of those 6 words. You are not insulting them. You are not arguing with their points. You are doing something much more powerful. You are holding up a mirror to their irrationality. By remaining entirely composed, you expose their lack of self-control. You force them to confront their own unacceptable behavior. You show them that their anger is entirely their own problem, and it has absolutely zero jurisdiction in your reality. They expected a loud and frantic battle. Instead, they hit a wall of solid ice. In that exact moment, the power dynamic shifts completely. The room notices your unshakable calmness. The attacker suddenly realizes that their attempt to intimidate you has failed completely. They are left with 2 choices. They can continue to shout and look entirely foolish, or they can pause and regain their composure. Either way, you have won without ever raising your voice. You have proven that you are the absolute master of your own mind. But suppose they are so blinded by rage that they cannot calm down. Suppose the shouting continues, or suppose this is an aggressive troll attacking you on the internet. desperate for an emotional reaction. This is when you deploy the ultimate Stoic dismissal. You look at them with total indifference and you say, "Have a good day." It seems like a polite and common phrase, but in this context, it is a weapon of absolute detachment. It communicates that you absolutely refuse to play their game. It shows that their emotional explosion is not even worth your energy to argue against. When you say, "Have a good day," and walk away, or when you type it to an online troll and log off, you starve their fire of all its oxygen. They wanted to manipulate your reality. They wanted to ruin your mood. By responding with polite indifference, you neutralize them completely. Their venom loses all its power. You protect your vital energy. You leave them suspended in an awkward vacuum, fighting against their own shadow. The ancient philosopher Seneca wrote that anger, if it is not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. When you refuse to meet hostility with hostility, you protect yourself from that self-inflicted damage. You prove that true dominance is never loud, never reactive, and never emotional. True dominance is quiet. It is deliberate. It is the ability to stand in the middle of a screaming world and remain completely untouched by the noise. You continue to move forward, anchored in reason, guarding your energy for the things that actually matter. Your mind remains a fortress of absolute peace. You have successfully neutralized explosive anger. You have learned how to walk away from a screaming world and maintain your absolute peace. But there is another type of attacker who is much more subtle and equally dangerous to your mental fortress. This is the psychological manipulator. They do not shout. They do not use loud, aggressive insults. Instead, they use the weapon of endless exhaustion. Imagine you are in a professional environment or a family gathering. You have clearly stated your decision or presented your plan. The manipulator does not openly attack it. Instead, they keep interrupting you, questioning every minor detail, and asking you to explain yourself for the third or fourth time. Why do they do this? They are not asking because they are confused. They are asking because they enjoy asserting dominance and creating chaos. They want to drain your valuable energy. Modern society rewards over-explaining. Society tells you that politeness requires you to accommodate them, to clarify your position repeatedly until they are completely satisfied. Stoicism completely rejects this trap. You are not obligated to justify your actions to someone who is entirely unwilling to listen. When you keep repeating yourself, you are wasting your energy on chaos. You must deploy the tactic of finality. You look at them calmly and say, "I have already said what I needed to say." This single phrase is a masterpiece of self-discipline. It instantly stops the cycle of unnecessary repetition. It exposes their hidden motives. If they continue to push you, it is no longer about gathering information. It is clearly about their fragile ego. You reinforce your authority without a shred of aggression. You do not raise your voice, yet your calm finality carries massive psychological weight. But what happens when the manipulator realizes they cannot exhaust you? They will try a different tactic. They will try to use their authority or their age to force your compliance. They will demand your submission simply because of their title, their position, or their relationship to you. They will act supremely entitled. This is where you must understand a profound Stoic truth. You must distinguish basic civility from true respect. You offer basic civility to every human being, but your true respect is a highly valuable privilege. It is not a commodity that can be commanded. When an entitled person berates you and demands your unquestioning obedience, You must not respond with sarcasm or resentment. You remain perfectly composed and state quietly, "Respect is earned, not demanded." Nothing else needs to be said. Your words carry immense weight because they are grounded in absolute truth. You make it perfectly clear that authority alone does not guarantee your respect. The ego-driven person is instantly exposed. They wanted blind compliance, and now everyone sees their desperation. You elevate your own confidence because you define your self-worth internally, not by the demands of an external boss or a toxic relative. Finally, if they attempt to mask their manipulation with sarcastic remarks or subtle disrespect during a conversation, you must not stoop to their level. You must elevate the standard of the interaction. You calmly look at them and say, "Let us talk when you are ready to be respectful." You are taking complete control of the dynamic. You force them to self-reflect. You show them that you will not tolerate insults and that only reasoned civil discussion is allowed in your presence. You cannot control their bad behavior, but you can absolutely control your response to it. You refuse to let their lack of self-discipline infect your mind. You establish an environment where calm logic and dignity prevail. By refusing to engage until respect is restored, you leave them entirely powerless. They are left with a choice to either escalate their foolishness or adjust their behavior. Either way, you win without ever engaging in a petty conflict. You remain the strongest person in the room because you refuse to be disrespected, yet you never stoop to disrespect yourself. You have learned to silence the loud aggressor and outsmart the quiet manipulator. You have established a standard of respect that no one is allowed to violate. But to make your Stoic immunity system completely bulletproof, you must take one more psychological step. You must stop expecting the world to be polite. Society is a chaotic place. You will inevitably interact with people who are deeply unhappy, insecure, and desperate to drag others down into their misery. If you walk out of your front door expecting everyone to treat you with fairness and dignity, you are setting a massive trap for yourself. You are handing the control of your emotional state over to random chance. The great Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius understood this vulnerability perfectly. He commanded the most powerful empire in human history, yet he knew that he could not control the behavior of other people. So, he controlled his expectations. Every single morning, before he spoke to anyone, he would prepare his mind for the worst. He told himself that he was absolutely guaranteed to meet people who were arrogant, ungrateful, deceitful, and jealous. He did not say this to make himself depressed. He said it to make himself invincible. Think about the profound psychological advantage of this daily practice. If you expect a dog to bark, you are never shocked or offended when it actually barks. It is simply acting out its nature in the exact same way. If you expect an insecure person to lash out with insults, you are never offended when they do. You view their toxic behavior as a biological reflex. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. It is just the noise of a broken mind trying to find relief. When you adopt this perspective, a massive shift happens inside your brain. You stop viewing difficult people as enemies who are trying to destroy your peace. Instead, you start viewing them as valuable sparring partners. The ancient philosopher Epictetus taught that difficulties are the very things that show a person their true character. He compared life to a wrestling match. When a difficult crisis meets you, you must remember that you are the raw youth with whom God the trainer is wrestling. Why? So that you may win the ultimate victory over yourself. You cannot build physical muscles without lifting heavy weights. You cannot build psychological muscles without facing disrespect and learning to remain completely unbothered. Every time someone throws an insult at you, they are giving you a free opportunity to practice your tactical pause. Every time someone doubts your intelligence, they are handing you the perfect moment to execute your verbal judo. They are doing you a massive favor. They think they are hurting you, but they are actually sharpening your blade. They are testing the walls of your mental fortress. And remember the absolute rule of this fortress. The heavy iron gates lock only from the inside. No attacker can ever force their way into your mind. They cannot make you feel humiliated, and they cannot make you feel angry. They can only stand outside the walls and make a lot of noise. You are the sole owner of the keys. The only way an insult can ever cause you psychological pain is if you deliberately walk down to the gates, unlock them, swing them wide open, and invite the enemy inside. When you lose your temper and argue back, you are opening the gates. When you desperately defend your life choices to someone who does not matter, you are rolling down the drawbridge. Why would you ever invite a toxic, unstable person into your personal sanctuary? You must refuse to let them in. Let them stay outside in the cold. Let them exhaust all their energy screaming at solid stone walls. Your only responsibility is to protect your peace at all costs. You do not fix their broken psychology. You simply elevate yourself above it. But as you elevate yourself above the daily chaos, you will inevitably face a much more sophisticated form of attack. You have learned to handle the sudden insult, the passive aggression, and the explosive anger. But what happens when the disrespect is disguised as authority? Imagine you are standing before a powerful boss, an influential client, or a dominant social group. They are not just throwing insults. They are trying to coerce you. They want you to compromise your values, bend to their will, or accept an unfair situation. They use subtle threats. They imply that if you do not comply, you will lose your job, your reputation, or your social standing. Society conditions you to tremble in these moments. Society tells you that when someone holds power over your paycheck or your status, you must bow your head and swallow your pride. You are expected to panic, to negotiate desperately, or to surrender your principles to survive. The Stoic immunity system completely rejects this cowardly approach. You must understand that their power is an absolute illusion. They do not hold power over you. They only hold power over external things, like money, titles, and social access. The ancient philosopher Epictetus taught that if you attach your identity to these external things, you will always be a slave to the people who control them. When a tyrant threatened to cut off the leg of Epictetus, the philosopher calmly replied that the tyrant could chain his leg, but not even Zeus himself could conquer his will. You must adopt this exact level of psychological invincibility. When an authority figure tries to pressure you into a corner, you must deploy the ultimate statement of Stoic detachment. You look them directly in the eyes. You keep your voice perfectly steady, and you say, "Do what you think is best. I am fine either way." Think about the devastating impact of those 10 words. At first glance, people might mistake this for passive submission. They could not be more wrong. This phrase is a psychological wrecking ball. Why? Because you have instantly removed their only source of leverage. A person who tries to coerce you relies entirely on your fear. They expect you to be terrified of the consequences. They expect you to beg or argue. When you state that you are completely fine with either outcome, you strip them of all their power. You are silently declaring that your peace of mind and your self-respect are worth infinitely more than anything they can offer or take away. They expected to see a desperate victim, but instead, they are staring at an immovable wall. The power dynamic shifts immediately and irreversibly. They realize that their threats are completely useless against a mind that does not fear loss. You are not fighting them. You are simply showing them that their weapons cannot penetrate your armor. This detachment is the highest form of human freedom. You prove that you are not a participant in their desperate game of control. You walk through the world knowing that no one can force you to act against your conscience. If they fire you, you will find another path. If they smear your name, you will rely on your own internal compass. Your value is generated entirely from within. You do not need to raise your voice, and you do not need to deliver a hostile counterattack. Your absolute indifference to their threats is the most crushing response possible. You leave them frustrated and confused, holding an empty leash. You have effectively reminded yourself and them of the fundamental Stoic truth. Your property, your career, and your social standing are not truly yours. They are temporary loans from the universe. But your character, your integrity, and your response to pressure belong to you eternally. By surrendering the attachment to the outcome, you secure the ultimate victory. You continue on your journey with your dignity and your peace completely intact, untouchable by any earthly authority. This brings you to the final and absolute realization of the Stoic immunity system. Supreme power. What exactly is supreme power? Modern society conditions you to believe a massive lie about power. It tells you that power is aggressive dominance. It tells you that power means shouting the loudest, delivering the sharpest comeback, and crushing your opponent into verbal submission. But look closely at the hidden psychology of a verbal street fight. The person who shouts is desperate. The person who throws an insult is begging for a reaction. They are sweating, their heart is racing, and their fragile ego is bleeding for your attention. Is that power? Absolutely not. That is the ultimate form of psychological slavery. True power is the exact opposite. The person who does not react is the person who controls the entire game. True power does not lie in destroying your enemy with sharp words. True power lies in your complete and total indifference to their desperate attempts to destroy you. Think about the profound shift in reality you have just undergone. Before you installed this mental firewall, every insult was a major crisis. Every harsh word from a coworker, a family member, or a boss demanded an immediate war. You freely gave your most valuable energy to absolutely anyone who asked for it. You let amateurs sit on the throne of your mind and dictate how your day was going to feel. That era of your life is now permanently over. You are no longer a reactive participant in the chaos of other people. You are the untouchable architect of your own peace. You now possess a psychological arsenal that makes you completely immune to disrespect. You have faced the casual insulter in the crowded room and gave them a terrifying, suffocating silence. You have faced the relentless attacker and stepped aside using verbal judo, letting their own malicious momentum pull them off balance. You have faced the toxic manipulator and established the absolute boundary, suffocating their fire by completely removing your oxygen. You have even faced the ultimate test of authority, proving that no title or threat can penetrate a mind that does not fear loss. You recognize that the only true way to defeat a malicious person is to refuse to become like them. You respond to their hostility by quietly and relentlessly building a magnificent life. You understand that you do not have to descend into the mud and wrestle with a pig to prove to the world that you are clean. From this day forward, your mind is no longer a public playground. It is a highly guarded, exclusive sanctuary. You will certainly still face toxic people. You will still encounter fragile egos, jealous colleagues, and bitter strangers. They will still try to hand you the heavy stone of their own deep misery. But you now know the ultimate Stoic truth. You do not have to take the stone. You have reclaimed your absolute sovereignty. You understand that their insulting words are just meaningless vibrations in the air. They have zero physical weight. They cannot cut your skin, and they cannot alter your destiny. They can only touch you if you unlock the gates of your mind and invite them inside. You refuse to unlock the gates. You refuse to participate in their delusion. You stand tall. You observe their chaotic behavior with objective pity. You protect your vital energy at all costs. The world outside will always continue to rage, but inside your fortress, there is only absolute silence, absolute clarity, and absolute peace. You have mastered the ancient art of not reacting, and because you no longer react, you can no longer be defeated by anyone. You are, finally and forever, completely untouchable. The external noise will never completely stop, but your internal suffering can end today. You now possess the tools to remain completely undisturbed in a chaotic world. The Stoic immunity system is yours to command. If this philosophy has shifted your perspective and given you a new sense of absolute power, do not keep it to yourself. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another lesson in self-mastery. Drop a comment below sharing a specific moment when you successfully used silence or calm detachment to defeat disrespect. Stay grounded, stay entirely untouchable, and I will see you in the next video.